It happened so fast, no one had time to breathe. One moment, the chemistry lab buzzed with the usual chatter of teenagers. The next, a student named Chad Montgomery had his hand wrapped tightly around Miss Valerie Washington's throat. Slamming her against the wall, the glass beakers rattled. Gas hissed from an open valve. Everyone froze, except for Miss Washington. Her eyes didn't show fear, and they didn't beg for help. They locked on Chad. Sharp, steady, and unshaken. It was as if she had stared down danger far greater than this. The kind of danger that made his outburst look like child's play. In the next 5 seconds, something happened that would end Chad's future. It would turn the school upside down and make everyone rethink who Miss Washington really was. The first rays of the morning sun slipped weakly through the tall glass windows of Crestview Elite High School in Calabasas, California. Students trudged inside. Their conversations filled the hallways like background noise. To most, it was just another ordinary day in the endless cycle of teenage gossip. But on the second floor, inside the chemistry lab, something was about to unfold. A chain of events that would ruin reputations and shatter arrogance. It would reveal the startling hidden past of a woman who, until that moment, appeared to be nothing more than an ordinary teacher. Her name was Miss Valerie Washington. She was the new chemistry teacher who commanded silence from the moment she entered a room. She was in her mid-30s with a sharp gaze. She had a calm presence that kept students on edge. Whispers followed her through the halls. Too strict, too cold, too mysterious. Her appearance only added to the talk. She wore long sleeves, even in summer. She had perfect posture like a soldier and eyes that seemed to read minds. Some said she was divorced, while others thought she was just lonely. A few whispered she had lived another life before Crestview Elite. What none of them knew was that those rumors weren't as far-fetched as they seemed. But every classroom has one problem student, the bully. The student who thinks he's untouchable. The one who believes rules don't apply and that teachers are beneath him. At Crestview Elite, that student was Chad Montgomery. He was the son of a wealthy businessman who practically owned half of Calabasas. Chad walked the halls like he owned them, too. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and always wearing a smug grin. He mocked weaker students, shoved kids into lockers, and cheated on tests without fear of consequences. Teachers tolerated him or looked the other way. They didn't want to risk crossing his father's influence. But Miss Washington was different. She didn't stumble when he mocked her lessons. She didn't flinch when he raised his voice. Instead, she met him with eyes so piercing that for the first time in his life, Chad felt uneasy. And Chad Montgomery hated being uneasy. That uneasy feeling was why things began to spiral out of control that Thursday morning. The class had been busy with an experiment. The air was filled with the acrid scent of chemicals. At the back, Chad leaned lazily against his workstation. His arms were folded across his chest, and his friends were snickering at his side. His smirk grew as he raised his voice so the entire class could hear. "Hey, Miss Washington, are you really a teacher, or just playing dress-up to cover the rent?" Nervous laughter rippled through the room. Everyone knew Chad's routine: provoke, mock, and humiliate until the target broke. Miss Washington didn't give him the satisfaction. Without even glancing in his direction, she spoke evenly. "Focus on your experiment, Chad. Your solution is about to overheat." The calm dismissal landed harder than any insult. Chad's jaw tightened. He wasn't used to people brushing him off. Normally, teachers stammered or gave in, but she had shut him down with a single sentence. "Don't tell me what to do. You're not my boss. My dad pays your salary. Have you ever seen someone so drunk on power they believe their parents' money gives them control over everyone else? What would you do if you were the one being challenged in front of a full classroom? Before we go any further, what city or country are you watching from right now? Drop it in the comments. We love seeing where our viewers are tuning in from. And if you believe no amount of wealth should excuse arrogance, smash that like button. Subscribe to Karen Conflict for stories that prove respect is earned, not bought. The room went silent. A few students tried to cover their grins. Others simply froze, waiting to see how Miss Washington would respond. She turned slowly, her sharp eyes locking onto Chad. That stare was colder than ice and sharper than steel. He shifted, suddenly uncomfortable, but forced a grin to hide it. You might believe your father's money controls this school. But in this classroom, science and discipline rule. Sit down. Her voice carried a finality that felt immovable. It was like a solid wall Chad couldn't push through. For a brief second, his confidence faltered. His heartbeat skipped. But pride was poison, and Chad had swallowed too much of it over the years. His friends were watching. The whole class was watching. He couldn't back down. With a scowl, he slammed his notebook shut and stood up. Or what? What are you going to do if I don't sit down? Her voice didn't waver and didn't rise. But there was a dangerous edge in it. Something forged in fire, and experience made several students straighten unconsciously in their seats. Chad, blinded by arrogance, mistook her composure for weakness. His temper flared. In a reckless burst of defiance, he crossed a line no student should ever cross. He lunged forward, grabbed Miss Washington by the throat, and slammed her hard against the counter. A chorus of gasps filled the room. Chairs screeched against the floor as students stood in shock. A few fumbled for their phones. For that single heartbeat, time itself seemed frozen. Chad's hand pressed against her neck. His face twisted in smug triumph. What now, huh? What are you going to do now? But then something shifted. Miss Washington's eyes didn't widen in fear. They narrowed. In that instant, the facade of the quiet teacher dissolved. What stood before them was something far more formidable. Years of training, discipline, and combat buried beneath her calm surface surged to life. Her hands snapped upward like lightning. She seized Chad's wrist in a grip of iron. His smirk faltered. Unease flashed across his face. Before he could react, her other hand struck his elbow, bending it in a direction nature never intended. A strangled cry tore from his throat as pain shot through him. His hold instantly weakened. In one swift motion, she twisted free, spun behind him, and locked his arm tightly behind his back. Chad's body slammed against the counter with a resounding thud. It echoed through the lab like thunder. The room froze. Every student was wide-eyed, their mouths hanging open in disbelief. Miss Washington hadn't simply defended herself. She moved with a precision and force that no ordinary teacher could possess. The way she held him down spoke of training and experience none of them could fathom. Leaning close, her voice dropped to a deadly whisper that carried across the silence. You don't know who you're dealing with. Chad thrashed, but the harder he fought, the tighter her hold became. His friends stayed rooted in their spots, fear etched on their faces. Nobody dared move. For the first time in his life, Chad Montgomery wasn't in control. Kay was prey, caught in the grip of a predator he hadn't even seen coming. Apologize. The single word cracked through the air like a whip. Miss Washington's tone was low, but carried absolute authority. Chad groaned, squirming under her grip, but the pressure on his arm only grew tighter. Say it, the boy who spent years terrorizing classmates and laughing at teachers was trembling now. Sweat rolled down his temple. His arrogance was stripped away in seconds. I'm sorry. Only then did Miss Washington release him. With a shove, she pushed him forward. Chad stumbled, clutching his arm. His once confident face was pale and humiliated. The classroom stayed silent. No one dared laugh. No one even dared whisper. Every eye was fixed on her. The woman who stood against Chad Montgomery and dismantled him with terrifying precision. Miss Washington calmly adjusted the cuffs of her blouse. She stood tall once more, her expression perfectly controlled. But in her eyes, something darker stirred. a storm hinting at a past none of them could comprehend. Class dismissed. At first, nobody moved. Then slowly, one by one, students gathered their books and slipped out of the room. Their glances darted nervously between Chad, who was still nursing his arm, and Miss Washington, who stood like a soldier returning to rest. That day, whispers spread through Crestview Elite High School like wildfire. The teacher wasn't just a teacher. She was something else, something dangerous. Chad Montgomery, the untouchable bully, had been broken in front of everyone. And it hadn't taken empty threats or begging. It took skill, precision, and a presence that could not be ignored. Deep inside, Chad knew his life had just changed in a way he could never undo. His arrogance and his shield of power had been shattered by the one person he underestimated. Because Miss Valerie Washington's past wasn't a rumor at all, it was real. And that reality had just crushed him in front of the entire class. Moments like this remind us that money can buy influence, but it can't buy true respect. Respect isn't inherited, and it isn't bought. It's earned. Wealth can silence some people. It can even bend a few rules, but it can't protect you forever. Eventually, everyone meets someone who can't be bought. That's when the truth comes out. If you've ever seen someone like that finally get humbled, you know it's a lesson they never forget. Like this video and subscribe to Karen Conflict for stories that prove some lessons can only be learned the hard way.